Coming up on this edition of Speed Chronicles, there's big F1 news.
SIG Media presents Speed Chronicles with Todd Lewis, powered by Rev TV.
Thanks for tuning in and checking out Speed Chronicles this week. We do it every week on the Rev TV YouTube channel and, of course, on your favorite podcast platform. Please like, please subscribe, and tell your friends and family to do the same. We talk about motorsports, we talk about racing, we talk about all the big stories. Very rarely do we get deep into the results. So, Formula One is coming to Canada this week. One of my favorite weeks of the year, a favorite event. If you've attended, you know what I'm talking about. It is a festival like no other. Streets are filled. Parties, festivities, happenings, all kinds of brand activations and things going on to do. So much stuff going on through the downtown. If you didn't actually go to the island to go to the race, you'd still have an amazing time. You don't necessarily even have to travel there. I mean, that's pretty spectacular and pretty fun and pretty cool when the circus comes to town like that. But it's really amazing how the city lights up and enjoys and just celebrates Formula One when they come to town. Super fun atmosphere. But the big story is next year's schedule is going to be different. We've been talking about this for several weeks now, going back to prior to the Monaco Grand Prix, because that's part of what's been involved in the switch. The big shuffle is going on in the Formula One schedule next year. The news came out some time ago. It's starting to be realized now, and especially since the schedule has been announced for 2026 in Formula One, the changes that they have talked about implementing are going to happen. The big shuffle involves Monaco and the Canadian Grand Prix. There's a date swap that is taking place. There's a couple of reasons for this. The European races will then be grouped together. You won't have European races break off, go to Canada, then come back and have more European races. They've put the Canadian Grand Prix into May, and it's closer to the first U.S. Grand Prix of the year, which is held in Miami. Again, that makes sense. It's for travel, it's for logistics, it's to help with their carbon footprint and reducing their emissions, and these things all make sense. However, the difficult and troubling part is with the date that has been selected. It's going to be an actual date swap, is that the Canadian Grand Prix is going to be on the Memorial Day weekend in the United States, same day as the Indianapolis 500. This was talked about. It was speculated that it might happen. I really thought that it was going to happen the week before the long weekend, the Victoria Day weekend in Canada, and you would avoid going head-to-head and conflicting with the Indianapolis 500. Because right now, both are afternoon races, both are going to start within a reasonable amount of time, but they're going to overlap, and it's going to become a choice of one or the other. Either watch multiple screens, PVRs are going to get a workout. For those that like to attend both events, that's going to pretty much be an impossibility. I'm puzzled as to why this selection was made to go head-to-head with the Indianapolis 500. Now, if you go the weekend before, it's Victoria Day weekend in Canada, and that's a big kickoff for a lot of tracks, and I get that, and I understand it, but you're not conflicting with the Indianapolis 500 race. You have qualifying that you're dealing with, but it also makes sense to me from a logistics standpoint, and that Miami is earlier in the month of May. There are 2 off weekends between Miami and the Canadian Grand Prix as the schedule has currently come out for 2026. And that doesn't make a lot of sense to me. I mean, I get it. Weather in May in Montreal, it could literally be sizzling hot and sunny, or it could be snowing. We've seen that. It happens. All of this makes sense again. Reduce the carbon footprint, reduce the travel, logistics, put all the European races together, put the 2 North American races together. I'm puzzled as to how and why it was done this way. I am anxious to hear the explanation at the media availabilities for the Canadian Grand Prix that will be coming up this week. This is not something that was sprung on them out of the blue. This has been talked about and discussed and negotiated for an awfully long time before everybody signed off on it. Is this to help ensure the future of the Canadian Grand Prix? Because we've gone down that road multiple times where, well, it might be on, it might be off. We thought we had a long-term deal. It wasn't necessarily a locked-in deal. These are all the things I want to hear about. Is this the reason that they have agreed to run on this weekend? It's going to be interesting to see. It's going to be interesting and challenging from a logistics standpoint for those that cover motorsports. It's really going to be troublesome. But I want to hear the explanation as to why. I think it's unfortunate. I don't think it makes a big deal whether you race the third weekend in May or the fourth weekend in May in Montreal. I would not want to go head-to-head with the Indianapolis 500. It's a giant, huge event in North America, not nearly as big worldwide. Formula One is big worldwide. Maybe they're not viewing the Indianapolis 500 as big a competitor as some in North America would think. Again, I want to hear those explanations and the reasons why the calendar was put together this way for 2026 for the Formula One circus. It will be interesting. There's going to be a lot of whining and griping. We've known it was coming. We known the calendar shift was coming for some time. And now, of course, all of the outrage is going to come out on social media. Let's try to work and find the best solution for everyone. Seems to me that if you only have 1 week off between Miami and the Canadian Grand Prix, that's better than having 2 weeks off. I don't know why there's 2 weeks off. There's a big gap of 4 weeks later in the summer. In August, of course, that's what happens in Formula One is they take a big summer holiday. But then they've got 6 races jammed into about 7 weeks to finish the season. It is a curious setup, to say the least. But all of us here are, of course, interested to see what happens with the Canadian Grand Prix going forward. Don't let it spoil your enjoyment of the event this year or in future years, quite frankly. It's a sensational event, fantastic race, 300,000 people show up, great attendance. And you know what? Whether it's held in May or whether it's held in June, people will show up. You're going to have hundreds of thousands of people make their way onto the island of Ile Notre Dame to go and see Formula One, whether they have to bundle up in parkas and snowsuits or whether they can wear shorts and T-shirts, depending on the weather that you're going to get in Montreal at that time of year, because it can be that wide-ranging. Super fun. But I remember back to one experience, this was quite a few years ago, working at the race, and we had drive-on privileges working in television. There was very few cars and parking spaces available on the island. So we drove on early in the morning to get there, go to work. Super fun, great, had a great day, everything went well. And what they do is they close the island to cars coming on and off afterwards because there are hundreds of thousands of people trying to make their way off the island. So everybody walks usually to the metro station, then you wait in line for a few hours sometimes, depending on how quickly you can get there. And those of us that are on the island, there's no place to go, there's nothing you can do. So what did we do? Well, the same thing all the fans were doing through the day. You drink, of course, and there were a lot of cocktails enjoyed after the race. There is big news in NASCAR as well as Formula One. Of course, the lawsuit drama continues. A big ruling in favor of NASCAR late last week that 2311 and Front Row, they're going to have to perhaps race as open teams. They can't continue as charter teams and sue NASCAR. Again, this is just part of the legal gymnastics that are going to continue for some time. We'll see. The trial is set for December. The teams still feel confident in their position. So, of course, does NASCAR. We await to see what happens next. At some point, there's probably going to be a settlement. More big news is that Ram, the truck brand, is coming back to NASCAR starting in 2026. Ram trucks will be part of the NASCAR Truck Series. That's good for the series. I think it's good to have them back. They eventually want Dodge to come back into the NASCAR Cup Series as well. More manufacturers being involved is a good thing. Let's hope some of that trickles across the border into Canada as well, and there is more manufacturer support for other series. I'm curious to see how this rolls out, though. The quotes after the announcement were interesting. The way we're going to do this is unlike anyone else. I wonder what that means. I wonder how doing it unlike anyone else is going to be different. No teams, no drivers signed up yet to carry the Ram brand, but I'm interested to see what happens with that. The other part of NASCAR is that they are going to Mexico this week. The international event is finally happening. Talked about with Mexico, talked about with Montreal, remember, and that didn't come through. It's going to be a huge financial success. They're going to have an enormous crowd in Mexico for the NASCAR race. There's lots of excitement, there's lots of interest, and I think it's going to do very well. We'll see how good the racing is. That's always going to be part of the equation in terms of new events, big events like this, and something international like this that is a first for NASCAR. It's been very quiet about NASCAR returning to Montreal. Does the date shift of Formula One help that? Possibly. It is not the only factor. You can find a date that works, but it's got to work for NASCAR as much as it does for Montreal. So it's been really quiet for a long time about that, and we'll see if anything develops from it. But moving the Formula One race to May, I guess it probably does help in terms of the availability for another event to take place on Ile Notre Dame in terms of NASCAR returning. We'll see. They do want more international expansion, so we'll see if that comes up as well. I should mention that IndyCar is coming up this week at Gateway as well. They are changing that time. Remember, it's a Sunday night race under the lights, which is good because it's stinking hot during the daytime at Gateway. So good to have that as a night race. And lots to talk about, lots to enjoy this weekend. Formula One, of course, and NASCAR goes international. Have a great weekend of racing. Don't forget to please like and subscribe to Speed Chronicles, and we'll do it again next week.